Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Leading Yourself podcast. Today, we are diving into the topic of career development and career growth. I'd had the privilege the last few weeks to travel for work to multiple locations that have multiple career conversations with amazing talents, and they all have asked me very similar questions. And I thought, maybe you have these questions too. So I'm going to share some of the career tips that I have shared with many of the people that I've had the privilege to meet with over this summer. Welcome to the Leading Yourself podcast. This is your host, Carolina de Arriba. I'm an HR professional, health and fitness coach, wife, mom, and above all things, a goal-getter. In this podcast, we're going to be digging into all things leadership, professional and career development, habits, and relationships. This is a podcast for those who want to become the best version of themselves. Those who have big dreams and are willing to embrace the journey and put in the work to achieve them. My goal is to share with you the tools, tips, and tricks to help you in your journey. So let's dig into today's episode. I have to confess that I feel old anytime that I say that I have 20 years of experience in HR. I graduated very young from college, and since I graduated, I've been working in human resources. I've been on multiple roles within human resources, but now I have accumulated 20 years of experience. And over the last 20 years, I've had the amazing opportunity and privilege to have hundreds, if not thousands, of career conversations with amazing talents in every company that I worked at. Recently, I had an influx of these career conversations or just get to know conversations where very talented individuals have asked me questions about their careers and what is next, and how do I know what is next? And is it time to move? Or should I stay a little bit longer in my role? Or what do I need to get to X or Y? We all have questions throughout our careers because we all want to take the right steps. And today, my intention is basically to share some of the most common tips that I had found myself giving recently when I see these kinds of questions. Again, if you are curious about what is next for you, if you're not clear on how to get to where you want to go, or you don't know what that destination is at this point, if you're trying to decide whether it's time to switch roles or do something different, or how you go about preparing yourself for that role that you've been dreaming about for a long time, well, this episode is for you. So let's get started. So the first thing I want to say, if you're in the process of looking for a different job or different opportunity within the company that you're working at, or maybe you're looking to move to a different industry or leave your current company, the first thing that I want to share with you is that you need to be in the right mindset. Mindset is everything, and it is important that you calibrate yourself and you have the right mindset going into this adventure of looking for a new role within the same company or in a different company. And what do I mean by that? I have seen so many people throughout my career that have made the decision to change their roles or to look for a different opportunity because they were running away from their current job. Something about their current job they didn't like, or it was frustrating or overwhelming. They didn't have a good relationship with their boss, or they didn't like their peers, or they struggled with their team, or the tasks that they were doing had become repetitive and they were bored. There was something negative about their current role that was pushing them to look for a different opportunity. And I think that will always be the wrong mindset. When you're looking for a new opportunity, you should not be running away from something. You should be running towards something. And that needs to be your mindset when you're looking for that next opportunity in your career. Always looking towards or moving towards something. And what should you be looking for? You might ask, because I get that question a lot. Well, in my career, personally, I've always been thinking 2 steps ahead. I love chess. I don't know if any of you play chess, but I personally love chess. And for me, chess is about anticipating the moves, right? And it's not about the next move, but it's the moves after the next that are important to win the game. And I think in your career is the same. You always need to be 2 steps ahead. And what do I mean by this? What I mean is that most likely for most people, the next role they move into, it's not going to be the last role of your career. That's not the job that you're going to be retiring from, right? It's just a milestone, and you need to look at that next role as such, as a milestone. I think years ago, we had this concept of linear careers where you're basically climbing a ladder, and every move you take is a step up, and the next step is another step up, always up to get to the top of that ladder, whatever the top of the ladder looked like for you. In today's world, that is not at all what is going on. It's not at all the reality of career development. The truth is that paths are not linear anymore. And in our careers, there's going to be many times where we're going to find ourselves taking steps sideways or even backwards in order to continue to grow. The new currency today in career development in your career is your skills. And how you acquire your skills is the key for everything that has to do with your career. And let me explain this. So I said the next role is only going to be a milestone. And you should look at it like that, right? So when we talk about mindset, we said you're not running away from something, you're running towards something. The other aspect of mindset is you see the next role or the next opportunity as a stepping stone, as a milestone, not as a destination. And in doing so, you need to have, first of all, clarity on what is the step after the next. And second of all, you need to ask yourself, how is this next opportunity going to prepare me for the opportunity that will come after? Meaning, how will this role help me develop the skills that I'm going to need, give me the exposure I'm going to need, help me expand my network so I can continue to grow my career, how it's going to give me the opportunity and the access to the types of experiences that are going to enrich my skill set and are going to help me grow and be ready for what is next. And that is how to identify what that next move looks like. And sometimes, in order to develop the right skills, you're going to have to take steps sideways or even sometimes backwards. Let me tell you, I personally truly admire people who take a step back because they realized they were missing something that they needed in order to move forward. And they do it with conviction. Why? Because they have clarity around what they want, clarity about what they need to get to where they want, and clarity on what it takes. And they're willing to pay that price, I'm making air quotes, right? In order to get there. So next time you find yourself asking yourself what is next and how to look for that next role, I hope that you think this way. You think in what am I moving to versus what I'm running away from. Thinking about what is the step after the next and how is this very next step preparing me for what is coming next? And to answer that question and know what is that I need to prepare myself for what is next, here's what you can do. A few things, but here are some tips that I always give people when I'm having this career coaching opportunities. One is, the first thing you need, again, is clarity of what is your destination? What are you aiming for? And of course, you can change course at any time, right? You might discover as you accumulate different experiences that maybe what you thought was what you wanted is not what you thought it was, and now you want something else. And that is completely valid. But you need to start with some clarity directionally where you're heading. Do you want to be leading people, or do you want to be an individual contributor? Do you want to be in a business role or in a more technical role? Do you want to be more of a generalist or an expert? What field do you want to be in? Whether it's a function or is an industry, you need some direction of what you want, and what you want needs to be aligned with what you enjoy, because you spend more time at work than you do doing anything else. So at least work on something that you love, that excites you, that when you wake up in the morning, you're excited to go to work because you love what you do so much. Now, when you have that clarity, and sometimes it's not easy because we all have this perception, or we assume what these things are, but we really don't know what we don't know. So here's two things that you can do. One, I would encourage you to look for job postings, whether it was within your company or in other companies, and read through the job posting as they describe the role, but also as they describe the requirements of the job. This is going to give you a better idea what the role is, but also what are the skills or the types of experience that you need if you want to aspire for a role like that. And of course, you're not ready for that role today, but now you have the recipe. Now you know what are skills that are valued for someone to go into that role. And now you can choose your next experiences, your next milestones to help you develop those skills that you're going to need for the future. Another way is to get to know conversations with people who are doing the role. Because I also have found over the years that what the job description said, it's not exactly what in reality the job is. So you want to meet with people who's doing the job to better understand what a day in their life looks like. What is that they do? Who are the stakeholders that they work with, right? What are the types of problems that they face, right? You want to know the good, but also the ugly of the role. You want to see the full picture, and then ask them, what skills have allowed you, one, to get here, and two, to be successful in what you do. Of course, when you pick people that you want to talk to, pick people that you admire, people that you think are crushing it in their role, and try to learn from them. What are the things that have helped them get there, and the things that are helping them as they are in that role to be successful? In other words, what would be the skills that you would need if you wanted to be in that role? Now, there is a caveat to all of this, and that is that roles evolve. Roles don't look the same that they did 5-10 years ago, right? So what you learn through all of these things is a current picture of that role. But you need to be open to the idea that that role is most likely going to evolve and change in some way, shape, or form over time. And that's why it's important that you do this on a regular basis. And when I say a regular basis, not multiple times a year or even once a year, but every so often is good to calibrate yourself, right? To make sure that you're always up to date and always working on the skills that are going to help you get to your goal, but most importantly, make an impact along the way. A lot of times we're so focused only on the finish line, right? We're only focused on how do I get to X or to Y, that we lose sight of the journey. And the journey is probably the most important piece. It's true in life and it's true in your career. The most important piece is the journey. And that is all the different experiences that you accumulate along the way and all the opportunities that you have to really make an impact. To make an impact to others, to make an impact to community, to make an impact in the company that you work for. That is even most important than getting to the finish line. Don't let your focus on advancing your career distract you from enjoying the journey and making sure that as you going this journey towards your goal, you're making an impact, right? That is super important. The other thing that I find myself explaining many times to people is the difference between performance and potential, right? And the best way I have to describe this is if you are standing in the present today and you want to evaluate someone's performance, you will look backwards in time to be able to tell what is that person's performance. Basically, is the ability of that person to deliver on results and objectives in the past. Most companies have a performance review process at the end of the year where you get feedback on your performance on the past year, on the past 12 months. Always looking towards the past, right? On what you did and how you did it. And both are critically important, what you accomplished and how you went about accomplishing that. And then potential is, if we are standing in today, in the present, we'll be looking towards the future. And it's that extrapolation of what you've accomplished in the past to determine whether you have the capability to do something in the future or what you have the capability to do in the future. And that is potential. And a lot of times potential is a little bit subjective, right? Because you don't know yet what you don't know. But you can demonstrate through your performance, and not only what you deliver, but how you go about delivering those results. You can show others what is your potential. That's why it's so important to try to do the best that you can in your current role, because that is what is going to give you the keys to open that next opportunity. That's what people are looking at you, and they're looking at what you're capable to do, but also how you go about doing what you do. Okay, that being said, I want to talk about something that has come up a few times over the last couple of weeks. And that is that sense, that feeling that it's time to move. And how do I know when to move? And a lot of times what I've seen happen is that we use our watch as the tool to tell us, or our calendar, as the tools to tell us when it's time to move. What do I mean by that? A lot of people think, oh, I've been in my role for 2 years or 3 years or you name it. It's time to do something different. It's time to move. I'm ready for what is next. And I will tell you that neither your calendar or your clock are the right tools to calibrate yourself on whether it's time to move. It's not about how long you've been in the role. For me, it's always about, have you taken out of that role all that you could? Because here's the thing, in your career, most likely, you're not going to come back to the role that you have today. Think about it for a second. Especially if you're someone who is ambitious in the best sense of the word and you want to continue to grow in your career, I'm 99% sure that you're not going to come back to the role that you have today. So once you move out of this role, you've lost the opportunity to learn what this role has to teach you. So the question you need to ask yourself is, have I taken full advantage of everything that this role has to offer me? And you need to go about answering that question looking beyond the surface of the question. Because you might say, I've already done or run all the processes inside my role. I've done everything. I've delivered. I've done all the things. But sometimes it's a matter of looking at things from a different perspective to make sure it has offered you all that it has to offer. And I'm going to share a story that I think I've shared in other podcast episodes in the past, but I remember years ago, I was working on a manufacturing plant, and every month I had to run these reports for corporate. It was the least favorite part of my role. I would say I hated it. I hated running those reports because they took so long and every month was the same thing. It was a very routinary thing to do, and I didn't like it. Plus, I had no idea if anyone was looking at my reports or was doing anything with my reports. I thought it was a waste of my time, and it was the least part of my job. I even thought that if I stopped doing the reports, no one would notice. Now, my work ethic didn't allow me to just stop doing the reports. I knew that was part of my role. It was expected of me, and I had to do it. And so I did. I continued doing the report. But I started to see at that report from a different lens, from a different perspective. I told myself, Carolina, you have to do this report. There is no way out. But what can you do with this report since you're already putting the effort? How could you leverage this report and give it a different meaning? So I started to send the report along with key takeaways, an analysis of the report, and some recommendations. And not only I send it to corporate, but I send it to my boss, I send it to the plant manager. And all of a sudden, people started to notice the report. And I got asked to go and present every month to the plant manager that report and my insights. And now my voice mattered. They were not only looking for their report, but they were looking to what I had to say about the data in the report. And most importantly, they wanted to hear my recommendations, which many of them end up being followed. And that helped me learn something that otherwise I wouldn't have. And here's the thing. Probably that analysis and those recommendations, that was an expectation people had of my boss at the time, not of me. So I didn't have to be perfect. No one was expecting me to be perfect. Hell, they weren't even expecting me to do it. Right? So it gave me the space to learn and to thrive as I was doing it. Probably if my boss would have shared the analysis that I shared the first time, people would have been disappointed with him because he was not meeting the expectations. But for me, no one expected me to do it. The bar was lower for me because that wasn't part of my role, which gave me the safety net to learn how to do it. And as I was doing it, I was preparing myself for what was coming next, because in the next step in my career, it would be an expectation for me to do it. And instead of waiting until I got there to learn how to do it, I was creating the opportunity for myself to do it now. And now that opened the door for me to move to the next role. And it wasn't any role. I got promoted. And I attribute the fact that I was chosen for that next role, that I got a promotion, the fact that I took advantage of my role to start learning developing the skills that were required at the next level, and start acting as if I was in the next level. So when I say, have you taken advantage of everything that your role has to offer? I'm asking you to look at what you're currently doing from a different perspective and see what else can you do. How can you show up in your current role as if you were in the next role? Which creates a safe space for you to stretch yourself and to develop skills that otherwise you will be missing the opportunity on developing right now where you are. Right? And the next question you should ask yourself before determining whether it's time to move is, have you created the impact that you can? Have you given all that you can give in this role? Have you created the impact that this role allows you to create at its fullest? Now, this one is tricky because I think in whatever role you are, in whatever function, in whatever industry, in whatever company you are, in any job you are today, there's always going to be better ways of doing things. There's always going to be opportunities to improve. There's always going to be opportunities to do things differently. So that one can be a double sword question, right? And it requires your judgment to decide when you have given that and what you've made that impact. Anytime that I'm in a role, I always ask myself, what have I done in the time that I've been in this role that someone will remember from 5 years from now? And they would say, oh yeah, that's something that Carolina did, that Carolina designed or implemented. And when I am able to deliver on something like that, plus I've taken advantage of everything that the role has to offer, then I know it's time to move. Then I know it's time for me to start explore other opportunities. You know, I've been very lucky in my career. I've moved and grow very fast. I've been very lucky because I've had the right mindset. I had lots of amazing people, a support system around me, mentors and sponsors and friends and trusted peers that I had my career squad alongside me to help me as I've progressed in my career. And I've moved very quickly. Sometimes I would say too quickly, that if I was able to go back in time, I would have stayed a little bit longer in some particular roles that I've had in my career because I think there were things that I missed that I could have learned that I didn't because I moved too fast. And when that happens, it was sometimes you find yourself in a situation where now you need to take a step back because you missed on that class. It's like if you're going to college and you skip a class and you keep advancing in your classes, and at one point you need to go back and take a class from a year before because you missed it. The same is in your career. If you don't collect and you don't take advantage of everything that a position has to offer, you're most likely going to find yourself ahead in the journey having to take a step back. But there's nothing wrong with that. But you can avoid it if you really pay attention and you really maximize your time in every opportunity that you have. I want to leave you with one last thought today around career development, and that is the difference between tenure and experience. We use them as synonyms, right? I just said I had 20 years of experience in HR. The truth is, I had 20 years of tenure, probably not 20 years of experience. Let me explain what is the difference between the two, right? Tenure is how long you've been in a role or a company, or how many years you've been working in your career. Experience is the diversity of experiences and circumstances that you have faced throughout your career that have helped you grow. So someone might have 5 years of tenure in a particular role, but just 1 year of experience because they just repeated the same 5 times, right? They are maybe running whatever process and they've run it 5 times exactly the same way without making any changes. They just done the same thing 5 times. They have 5 years of tenure, but 1 year of experience. And I would say my goal always in my career is that my experience outpace my tenure. Let me repeat that. My goal, and I hope yours, is that your experience outpace your tenure. Most of the time, what we see is people with higher tenure and lower experience because they've been more time in the role than the number of different scenarios and circumstances that they face that help them grow. For me, I'm always looking not on how long I've been in a role, but how many different experiences I've accumulated. How can I take advantage of the different circumstances coming my way to accumulate more experience? And when I look at things from that perspective, and when I have the goal of my experience outpacing my tenure, then instead of running away or shying away from challenges, I jump head on those challenges because every challenge, every setback, it's an opportunity to accumulate more experience. In my career, I had to face problems that were very complex. Some of the most difficult situations that I face in my career have to do with other people, right? With low performers that I had in my team that I wanted to turn around, or with stakeholders that didn't understood what our department was doing, or conflicts that arose along the way. And I could have shied away from those, but I didn't. Why? Because I had this mindset of I want to have more experience than tenure. During 1 year, I faced 10 different situations. Right? Now I accumulated a lot of experience that have helped me grow in so many different ways. So don't shy from problems. Don't shy from challenges. Don't shy away from setbacks. Totally the opposite. See it as opportunities to help you accumulate experience, to help you grow the skills that you're going to need further along in the journey. That maybe no one is expecting you to do right now, but eventually it will if you want to continue to grow in your career. So those are some of the random thoughts that I wanted to share with you today. And of course, if you have any questions on this topic of career development and career growth, I want to invite you to send me those questions, and I'll be happy to do another podcast episode where I share some of my career tips with you. I really hope that something today resonated with you, that there's something today that you can take and reflect and apply in your own career to help you continue to thrive and to grow towards your goals. With that, if you found today's podcast helpful, as always, please share it with a friend that can benefit from today's content. I hope you have a great week ahead, and I can't wait to talk to you again next week here on the Leading Yourself podcast.